Hello, and welcome to Sunshine for Your Life. Have you ever wondered just how much time you spend locking and unlocking doors in your life? You lock your house before you leave. You unlock your car when you get into it. You lock your car when you get out of it, or at least most people do. And you spend a lot of time unlocking the office and going here and there and making sure you have your keys. As a matter of fact, you may drive an hour after you left your house and wondered if you actually locked up the house like you thought you did. Sometimes we live with our keys, or at least that's the way it seems. Sometimes we wonder where we put them. I have an answer to that. I used to misplace my keys a lot, but I discovered a solution for myself. It works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody, but I always keep my keys in my purse. But I have a styrofoam cutout thing. I just took some not styrofoam, and some foam board. That's what I intended to say. And I just have a piece of foam board, and I put key rings in. I have 3 key rings, and so I put those notebook rings in and just hook them. So as long as I have them hooked in my purse, I always know where they are. But you know, everybody loses their keys sometimes, or they're continually hunting for them. It is difficult. Now I don't lock my doors very much. I don't care. You know, I don't have that much that needs to be stolen. But last year I had a problem, and then my doors were on my car were not working. Now nothing really bad happened, but I was reminded by friends of mine that I really ought to get the locks fixed so people couldn't break into my car, because things do get stolen. So I was a good person, and I went ahead and I had my locks fixed. But a few days later, the police were knocking on my door, and they asked me about my car. And it turns out somebody who they thought was on drugs had smashed a window in my car. Glass was everywhere. I was weeks picking it all up. The city had to come in and they had to vacuum down the whole parking lot. And the person had taken everything in the back seat of my car and dumped it on the ground. You know, if I hadn't had my car locked, they could have simply opened the door, looked at the bags, realized that there was nothing in the bags, and been on their way. But because I had my doors locked, which everybody said I had to do to keep my car safe, it cost me a massive repair bill to take care of my car, replace the window, and do all that kind of thing. Plus, as I said before, I was weeks picking up the glass. So that was one time when I really wished that I hadn't locked my door. Now, the Bible talks about Jesus knocking at the door of our hearts, and aren't you glad that Jesus has not locked us out? The first verse I'm going to have on the screen is Revelation 3:20, and this is what it says. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. Now I'm going to read it again, but that's not the full version. I'm going to read it once more and then go back and read the whole thing. It's a little bit longer. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. Now, this is the whole thing. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. It's just a little bit longer. And that's followed by another verse that I want to include here, and that's Revelations 3:8. And this is what it says in Revelations 3:8. And here again, I'm giving you part of it, and I'm going to go back and give you all of it. I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. Here is the whole thing. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Now the implication here is because you have not denied my name, and because you have, even though you're not very strong and you don't have much power, you've been faithful, I will open up doors for you that no one can shut. In other words, if you're faithful to him, God opens up doors for you. That's basically it in a nutshell. If you believe in Jesus and you do not deny him, he will do things for you and open up doors of opportunity for you. Now, if you look at paintings of Jesus knocking at the door, there are a lot of them out there. You will find out that there's no knob on the outside of the door. Jesus is knocking, but there's no knob on the door. You have to let him in from the inside. He doesn't force his way in. He comes in when he's invited in. So whoever's in the inside of the house, inside the door, has to open the door in order for Jesus to make his entrance, because he's not going to force his way in. So that's the characteristic of many of the paintings of Jesus at the door, knocking at the door. There is no doorknob. It's up to a person to invite him in, because he doesn't force his way in. Each individual, of course, has to decide for themselves whether they're going to allow Jesus into their lives, whether they're going to allow themselves to be a Christian or not. And then after you make that decision, you have a personal relationship with Jesus, and then you also have to make the decision to let him be Lord of your life, to let him lead you and guide you. And also you have to make the decision to trust him. Now, trust is a decision. When you trust him, then you will follow him, and he will lead you, and he will open doors for you in terms of ministry, in terms of your career choices, and all of that. As we become Christians, we nurture our relationship with God, and then we seek to serve him. And following him and doing his work is our legacy, or at least a part of our legacy. What we do for God, he uses, and the benefits of what happens to that goes to future generations and also for other people. But how do you know that God is using you? And how do you know that you're going to complete the work which God has set out for you to do? Well, I have talked to many Christians, and they have two concerns. One, that they're doing what God has called them to do, and two, that they'll be able to complete the work that God has for them to do. And I know one of my good friends who was ordained with me, he passed on, but he was a college professor like I was. We weren't teaching in the same school, but we had a lot of the same interests, and we used to talk a lot about our experiences as being college professors. He became quite ill. He was concerned he wasn't going to finish his work, and his wife became very concerned about that as well. Well, he became ill enough that he did pass on, and his wife was inconsolable, and she thought, well, he didn't finish his work. But you see, he did finish his work, because there is a verse in the Bible, and I'll be reading it later, that says he will complete his work in us up until the time of Jesus Christ. So he had finished his work. God would not have taken him home if he hadn't. And so when I talked to her about that specific verse, and I'm only giving you the gist of it here, she felt greatly comforted, because he had done a part of what he wanted. He had done all of what he was supposed to do, but it may have been just a part of a larger work. He was a writer. He published books. I published a book. I published several articles as well. So we were both writers, and we were both professors, and we got along fine with each other. And so we talked a lot about that, and we were concerned also about the same things. What am I leaving for my legacy? So how do we know that we are in the right track and will finish the work that we have to do? Well, first of all, we have to know that we have salvation, and that our salvation is sure. I'm going to read a verse, and it's not going to be on the screen. It's a little longer than for me to put it on the screen. But this is Romans 8, verse 16 and 17. It says this: "It is the Lord himself bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with him in order that we may also be glorified with him." Now in this verse it's saying we know that we are Christians. We can have that knowledge, and that our spirit testifies to that. God's Spirit testifies to that, so we know for sure that we are. And because we are his family, because we are his children, we are also his heirs. And so therefore, whatever the rewards are, whatever happens, we are subject to that. And we have to be willing, of course, to go through whatever problems that we need to go through in order to accomplish what he wants. But he just justifies us, and he also takes care of us, and he also rewards us. So we are then born again, children of God and heirs of God. Now, I'm going to read another verse, but it's not going to be on the screen, and it's Romans 8:27, and it says this: "The Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. In other words, God's Spirit intercedes for us. And as we pray, God helps us to intercede for ourselves. So we are definitely the children of God. God will never leave you where he cannot keep you. And knowing the character of God and knowing the scriptures will help you to trust God and make that decision, because trust has to be a decision. It's not going to do you much good if you don't trust the person who you have to trust in order to become a Christian. If God's going to be your father, if you're going to be his child, you have to trust and he will take care of you. If you don't trust, then you hamper yourself from accomplishing the things that he wants you to do. Remember, God knows what's going to happen to you every day, and he will order your life so it follows the pattern that he wants it to follow. The third verse up is going to be Psalm 32:8, and this is what it says. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way that thou shalt go. I will guard thee with mine eye. Let me read that again. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way that thou shalt go. I will guard thee with mine eye. So he is leading you all the time. Now I'm going to read a couple of other verses here. These are not going to be on the screen, but it has to do with our finishing our work and our following God and his power at work so that we can manage to do what we are supposed to do. Ephesians 3:20, here again, not on the screen, but this is what it says. God can do anything, you know, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, by working within us, his Spirit deeply and gently within us. I want to read that again. God can do anything, you know, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. He does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his Spirit deeply and gently within us. So therefore, God can do all kinds of marvelous things for you, far more than you could ever imagine. And then he does it very gently. He leads you. You got to remember that when Jesus leads the sheep, he doesn't stand behind them and push them. The good shepherd leads his sheep. He doesn't get behind and kick and push and shout. And the lambs follow him. They follow him because they recognize his voice. They follow him because they trust him. So it's a case of leading, not pushing and shoving. And this is the way that God works. Now, another verse I'd like to read, also not on the screen, is John 14:12. And this is what it says, John 14:12. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. So you don't have to worry about the importance of your work. God's not going to lead you to do something that's not important. And you have to consider the fact that what God thinks is important may be a lot different than what other people think are important. It's not necessarily high prestige positions or positions with a lot of power or positions with a lot of salary or money behind it. It's being good to other people. It's living a simple life that God has laid out for you. And so what is important to you should be the same as what's important to him, and he will show you what that is. And it may be surprising that it may not be what you think it is, but he has set people in place. If you look at a puzzle, when all the pieces fit together, the puzzle is beautiful. If a piece is missing because somebody doesn't do their work and there are gaps in it, then that's sad because it makes an incomplete picture and not a very beautiful one. So whatever he has for us to do, it just fits us nicely into the place that we are supposed to be. And we may not know what the outcome is. We may not know what it looks like on the other side. We may not know what the full picture is, but the fact is we are a part of it, and that is important. You need to remember that God will unlock doors for you, and you will do wondrous things for him. Now, God can both open and close doors. If he opens a door, no one can shut it. If he closes a door, no one can open it. In the years that I was teaching and when I was changing positions every so often, I would always be asked by several schools to come to their school and teach. It was like an open door. I could choose what I wanted. But I wanted to know what was the one that God wanted me to open the door for. I wanted to know the place that he wanted me to be. And it couldn't be in all of those places. So I used to pray that God would close every door that he did not want me to be a part of, and open that one door that I would walk through so I know it would be the right place, because it would be the only door that was open to me. And God always honored that prayer. And I always ended up, I believe, in the right place, because my prayer was always the same. I will go where you want me to go, but I have to know where it is. And the only way I know where it is to close everything off except that one place. And he always did that faithfully, and I always ended up in the right place. God has chosen you to bear fruit for him, and your fruit will remain and accomplish his will. Now, there is a verse I want to read, John 15:16, also not on the screen, and this is what it says. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you, that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, that he may give it you. So what it basically saying is, you didn't choose God, but he chose you, and he ordained you to do certain things, and that those things that you do are your fruit, and this fruit will remain. It's good fruit, and it will remain and have the effect on other people and other situations that it is supposed to have, because God has ordained for it to be there. Now, there are many verses that apply to you doing your work for him, and I could read off more and more. I don't need to give you verse after verse after verse, but I would like to give you a couple more verses. One of them is Ephesians 2:10, and it says this: For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should work in them. Now, or walk in them. Let me read that again. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. What this means is that God has already prepared for you the things that he wants you to accomplish. He prepares you to accomplish them. He prepares them for you to be accomplished. So therefore, it's a perfect fit. It always is a perfect fit. So God knows exactly what he wants you to do. He's going to lead you in that correct path, and he's going to open the doors for you to get there. You're not going to be locked out. You will be open. The doors will be open for you, and you will be able to do what it is that God wants. God will open the door for you to become his child, and he will also open the door for you to have a ministry for him. And you can be thankful that you don't have to worry about the outcome. All you have to do is follow. Let God do the work in you, and let God worry about the outcome. It's something that only he knows anyway. And I'm going to close with one other verse. It's Philippians 1:6, also not on the screen. And it says this, and this is the verse that I was referring to when I talked to my friend about her husband passing away, the college professor who was also my friend. This is the verse I was referring to, Philippians 1:6. It says this: He who has begun a good work in you will continue until the day of Jesus Christ, right up to the time of his return, developing that good work and perfecting and bringing it to full completion in you. So what it says here, that God has begun a good work in you, and he's going to complete it. However long it takes, he will complete that work in you, and it will be in full completion in you. And you may not do the whole work, but you may do your section of it. So we don't have to worry about God's unlocking and locking doors. We only have to worry about following him and knowing full well that he's going to open the doors of ministry for us, or open the doors for all kinds of things. The right person to marry, the right job to get, the right school to go to, the right ministry to have. And it may be very, very surprising where you end up, because his thoughts and his imaginings are so far in advance of ours that we can't keep up with them. And he knows more than what we can ever imagine or think. And he can answer our wildest dreams in ways that we don't even think about. that we can't even conceive of. So I'm going to close it here. We'll be doing something else next time. Please join me then.